Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi guys, let me introduce myself. My name is Wilda Rusdiana. I am from TBI 3 class, Faculty of Education and Teacher Science, an English Language Education Study program. This video is to fulfill the assignment of the extensive listening course by lecturer Nina Hayuning Tias SPD MPD. The title of the material from the podcast that I have listened to is Games for Learning English. And here is the link. The research I used was YouTube. YouTube offers easy access and a wide selection of podcasts with diverse video quality. The reason I chose this material is because discusses the use of games as a tool for learning English. I'm interested to know how games can help in improving English language skills, especially in terms of listening. It also discusses different types of games that can be adapted to different learning styles. Such as visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and logical. The Games for Learning English podcast talks about different games that can be used to learn English. The podcast is hosted by two speakers who cover a range of topics, including the first, learning styles. This podcast reviews the four main learning styles: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and logical. The speakers explain the characteristics of each learning style and give examples of games suitable for each style. And the second, visual games. This podcast discusses several games that involve visual, such as flashcards, tic-tac-toe, and twister. These games help in improving reading, word recall, and understanding instruction. And the third, auditory games. This podcast discusses games like word train and spelling game, which help in improving listening, word recall, and understanding instruction. And the fourth, kinesthetic games. This podcast discusses games like treasure hunt and phonic physical, which help in improving listening, word recall, and understanding instruction. And the five, logical games. This podcast discusses games like memory game and sentence game, which help in improving logical thinking, word recall, and understanding sentence structure. The podcast also emphasizes the importance of using games as fun and motivating learning aids. The speaker also points out that games can be adapted according to learners' needs and abilities. This material is very relevant to my daily life. I can apply the methods discussed in the podcast to help children learn English in a fun and interactive way. I can also use the games to improve my own English skills. Listening to this podcast helped me with extensive listening in several ways. The first, improving understanding of English. The podcast use easy to understand English and is interspersed with clear explanation. This helps me to improve my understanding of the English language. The second improves listening skills. This podcast discusses various games designed to improve listening skills. I was able to learn various techniques and strategies that I can apply in my daily life. And third, getting to know different methods of learning English. This podcast introduced me to different methods of learning English, especially through games. I can choose the method that best fits my learning style. The problems I faced in extensive listening were the first, difficulty in understanding unfamiliar words. I often encounter unfamiliar words in text or conversation. And the second, difficulty in following the storyline or discussion. I sometimes have difficulty following the flow of the story or discussion, especially if the material is quite complex. The strategies I will use to overcome this problem are: the first, take notes. I will make brief notes on the key points discussed in the material I am listening to. The second, look up the meaning of unfamiliar words. I will look up the meaning of unfamiliar words in a dictionary or through the internet. The third, making a summary. I will make a brief summary of the material to ensure that I understand the key points. And finally, practice regularly. I will practice listening regularly to improve my skills. I believe that by practicing and using the right strategies, I can improve my extensive listening skills. Maybe that's all I can say. That's all from me. Thank you and see you again. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.